Today I'm going to talk about one of the most broken combos in Disney Lorcana. Now, I'm not going to lie, when this combo first was revealed, I was a little apprehensive. I thought it might not be super consistent, but I think I was wrong. So let's dive in and look at Green Blue Prince Phillip Shift. This deck has a lot of similarities to the Green Blue decks that we saw last set. I would say that was in the top 4 decks last set with the meta, but I think this time it's going to be one of the top 2 decks would be my guess, or at least for a while. But it's very similar to the Green Blue from before. So to start off, we have the Clarabelle Clumsy Guest, 1 cost Inkable. Now she is a 1/2 stat line quest for 1, but she's primarily your shift target for Big Clarabelle is the main reason. You don't necessarily need to get her down on turn 1. In fact, it's almost dangerous to do so just because there's so many ways to remove her before you get to 5 ink. She also provides some item removal if you need it. You can pay 2 extra ink to banish chosen item. Items aren't a huge deal right now, but we have some pretty good items from set 10 that might make item decks come back into play with a Tamatoa happy as a clam. So having some item removal I think might be a good idea going into the set. Now with this deck, the main thing you want to do is shift on turn 2, and one of the ways that we do that is a Tipo Growing Sun, 2 cost Inkable, 1/2 stat line. Whenever you play him, you can add a card from your hand to your inkwell. And again, it doesn't need to be inkable. You don't need to show your opponent what it is. You just take an extra card and put it exerted into your inkwell. Now this is where this deck gets a little bit spicier than it was last set. So we're running 3 copies of Max Goof Rebellious Teen. Not great stats. I mean, he's a 3 cost, 2/2 quest for 1. But when you play him, you may pay 1 ink to return a song card with cost 3 or less from your discard to your hand. So that's a great ability. He brings back a song from your discard to your hand. There's a couple reasons I don't like him, and I'm seeing a lot of decks just cut him out and go right to the Big Max Goof. But he only brings back Mother Knows Best, Malicious, Mean, and Scary. He does not bring, or he can bring back the 1 Jump Ahead as well. But he can't bring back You're Welcome. He can't bring back Stop Chaos in its tracks. So you're only able to bring back about half your songs from your deck. And then the second reason I'm not crazy about him, and I guess in a ramp deck it works, but when you play him on 3, he never feels good because A, you probably haven't sang a song yet. There's nothing to bring back. And then B, if you're playing him with 3 ink, you don't have enough ink to bring the song back, even if you did. So maybe with that ramp on 2, you could use the ability, but again, you probably won't have a song to bring back. I can maybe see Tipo singing 1 Jump Ahead and then you use Max to bring that back. But I think there's a reason he's getting cut from some of these decks. Now, another card that's oddly getting cut from these decks I'm seeing is the Prince Phillip Royal Explorer. So he's primarily a shift target, and what's great about him as a shift target is he's got ward. So you put him down, 3/2 stat line quest for 2, that's great, but the main reason we're playing this one is he has ward, so no one can remove him, or it's very hard to remove him before the shift with 6 ink for the Big Prince Phillip. So I'm seeing, because this is a ramp deck and there's so many ways we can ramp, I'm seeing a lot of people just cutting him out, putting something else in that slot, and they're just going straight to 9 ink to play Prince Phillip for his full cost. So for now I have 4 copies of him in there, but what I am seeing, it seems to be a trend to cut him out. Then we have 4 copies of Donald Duck Perfect Gentleman. He was a staple last set too, 2/5 stat line quest for 2. 5 willpower is great. He withstands a lot. You can't take him out with the new Thunderbolt song. Strength is very hard to deal with him. You need 5 characters on board. He does shift 3, but I've never seen anyone shift him in this deck, but he's primarily your draw engine. So if you can't get that Clarabelle out, Donald Duck's going to be your best bet. He also pairs really well with the Clarabelle because he gives your opponent an extra card each turn, which means more cards for you when you get her on the field. Then we're running just 1 copy of this 4 cost uninkable Prince Phillip Warden of the Woods, 3/4 stat line. His ability states your other hero characters gain ward, quest for 2. So I think this is just, you want to have as many Prince Phillip targets as you can, and we can only run 4 of the other one, so we're going to add 1 of him as well. But I can easily see this card being cut as well. But he can give, your Cinderella shift, or your Cinderella ward. He can give your Max Goof's ward. So he can give your Basil ward. There's a lot of things he can give the ward to, so it's not like you would never use that ability. But I think, again, with the shift targets being removed, because it's a ramp deck, because I think that's the beauty of Sapphire. I think any other color that's going to run this Prince Phillip is going to want to have a lot of shift targets, where I think Sapphire can get away with just ramping straight to 9. And here's probably the biggest addition to this deck, the 4 cost uninkable Cinderella Dream Come True, 2/3 stat line quest for 1. Her ability states, at the end of your turn, if you played a princess character this turn, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down and draw a card. So again, this is probably going to be the most expensive legendary from set 10. I think she's about $60 right now and probably going to stay there for a while. What's great about her is when you play her, the ability already takes effect because she's a princess character. You can add a card to your inkwell just like Tipo, so it can be uninkable, and then you can draw a card. So she replaces herself on the play. Just a great ability. Now there's no other princess characters that this works with, but if you can use her at least once, you know, it's already paid for itself. And then obviously if you play a second Cinderella, they both can do it. So this thing can just ramp out of control if your opponent doesn't have an answer to it. But this is the main addition from set 10, and I think all these decks are going to be running 4 copies of this. Now only 2 copies of Max Goof Chart Topper Shift 4. Whenever he quests, you can play a song with cost 4 or less from your discard for free, then put it on the bottom of your deck instead of your discard. So this works really well in this deck. There's a lot of songs, and there's a lot of songs that are 4 or less. So that he can play You're Welcome, which is great, and he can play any song in the deck except for Stop Chaos in his tracks. So just a nice way to play songs for free, to play songs from your discard. Just a little spicy addition from the last set. I'm curious to see, you know, if he stays in this deck, if the green-blue players keep playing him, or maybe up him to 4. I'm not sure. They'll be fun to follow. Then 4 copies of the 7-cost Inkable Basil Undercover Detective. He's got a 5/4 stat line, quest for 2. Great stats on this guy. When you play him, you can bounce a character back. That's the main reason you play this guy, is to bounce back something you don't want on the field. And then whenever he quests, chosen opponent discards a card at random. There's 2 things I don't like about this card. Love everything else about it. But the first one being, there's a lot of things you don't want to return to your opponent's hand. So if my opponent plays a Hades, I do not want to send that thing back, right? And the second thing I don't like about it is it seems to work against the Clarabelle game plan. In the game plan with Clarabelle, I want you to have as many cards as possible. So if you discard every time I quest, that actually lowers my card draw as well. Other than that, he's got great stats, and that ability to bounce back a character really does come in handy. You can also use it on your characters if you need to, so don't forget that as well. I can see maybe bouncing back the Max Goof Rebellious Teen to get you another song. I can see bouncing back Hades to use his ability, or even Prince Phillip again. That would be rather expensive. Then we got the main draw engine of this deck, Clarabelle Light on her Hoofs, Shift 5. At the end of your turn, if chosen opponent has more cards in the hand than you may draw cards until you have the same number. This card is pretty close to broken in terms of the cards it can draw you, especially. There's just so much synergy with this deck. So You're Welcome. I use it on one of your characters. You draw 2 cards, right? So I can bounce your cards back with Mother Knows Best or Basil. And then I can make you draw cards with Donald Duck. So with the Donald Duck, it says may, so you don't have to, but you're probably going to. But just a lot of ways to bounce back cards, make you draw more cards. So it just pairs really well with this deck. I think the Clarabelle, this Light on her Hoofs, is kind of one of the only reasons that Emerald had any kind of shot last set. You know, last set it was all Amethyst, Evasive, or Aggro, or Clarabelle. The green-blue kind of took over the control aspect of these decks. So Clarabelle really just made Emerald have a chance last set, and I think it's going to be great going into this set as well. And 4 copies of the 7-cost Uninkable Hades Infernal Schemer, 3/6 stat line, quest for 2. This card has been around since set 1. And it saw a little bit of play as maybe a 1 or 2 of, but it really took off with the rotation last set, one of the best removals that we had left. And now it's up to 4 of, and I think that's where it's going to stay. I think most Sapphire decks, especially the control variants, which most Sapphire decks are going to be running 4 copies of Hades. Such a great card, and so many ways to bounce him back and play him again. Great to get rid of opposing Clarabelles, the Prince Phillips, anything without ward, this thing can get rid of. It does ramp your opponent, which is unfortunate at times, but normally at that endgame it doesn't really matter that much because you're both at absurd amounts of ink anyways, and usually the removal is more valuable than their extra ink. Alright, then we get to Prince Phillip, Vanquisher of Foes. So he is a Shift 6, which is rather expensive. He is evasive, which is nice. His main ability, when you play this character, banish all opposing damaged characters. So any character, any opposing character that has damage on it is going to be removed. Now he's a 6/6 stat line, quest 4/3. Once this thing gets out, it's pretty hard to deal with if you don't have Hades or a Maleficent Dragon or a Dragonfire or something like that. Very hard to deal with. This will be really great into the Amethyst evasives. But what makes this card work this set that didn't before is this song Malicious, Mean, and Scary, which we'll get to in a minute. But this card has been around, I believe, since set 4. Just never really found its niche. People tried to put it in the green steel decks, maybe with a Tinkerbell or some ping damage from Fire the Cannons or Robin Hood. And you could remove a couple characters with it, but this new set has turned it into a board wipe. Alright, moving on to the actions. 4 copies of the inkable 2-cost Seal the Azurite Sea. This turn you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down, draw a card. This card is great because, unlike Tipo, the card that I add to my inkwell is face up, so I can still use it. So on turn 2, you can play this and then still have 1 ink left over to maybe drop a Clarabelle or something like that. And it draws you a card as well. So it's a little easier on your hand than Tipo is. Tipo's great for getting rid of songs. If you know you're playing against an Emerald deck that might have Ursula. Tipo's great for getting rid of maybe a high cost uninkable that you can't get rid of and you need the ramp. But usually you're going to want to play Seal the Azurite Sea, especially on the play. Just that extra card is great. And then 1 copy of the 2-cost uninkable 1 Jump Ahead. This is another song that's been around since set 1. Now back in the day before Sail and before Tipo, so this would be before set 5, all blue decks ran this card. It was great. You would really see it in red, blue, blue steel, things like that. And the reason it's only a 1-of is you already have 8 ways to ramp on turn 2. This is just a 9th way. This is just another way to make the deck a little bit more consistent. And I don't have the odds in front of me of what your chances are, but when you mulligan with this deck, the main thing you're looking for is ramp on 2. If you don't find that, your whole game plan starts to fall apart. So just having another way to do that is where we would have so just to have 1 more shot at that on your mulligan to find a ramp on 2. That's why we're running this card, just 1 copy. Alright, the last new addition to this deck, 4 copies of Malicious, Mean, and Scary. So this is a 3-cost song, put 1 damage counter on each opposing character. So by itself, you know, that's not huge, but when you partner it with that Prince Phillip that removes everybody, what you're going to do is sing this with your 3-cost Prince Phillip, then shift the big Prince Phillip, and it's a complete board wipe. This thing works around ward, this thing works around resist, because it's saying put a damage counter on, not deal 1 damage to. But nothing survives this other than a location. So I think I underestimated how impactful that would be. But it seems to be taken off, and I think this is going to be a pain to deal with. There's really no way, especially with that Prince Phillip, with him having a ward, you can't prevent that from happening unless somehow you, let's say, be King Undisputed him or something. It's so hard to deal with. 3 copies of the 3-cost Uninkable Mother Knows Best. You see this card come in and out of this deck. I'm not really sure why. I really like this card. It's been around since set 1. I think it's just got a lot of utility. It's removal. I can bounce your character back. Now, it's not hard removal. I think you would call that soft removal, where I didn't banish him, but the threat is gone for this turn. You can just play it again next turn. So it is a form of removal. With Clarabelle, the second reason I like this card is with Clarabelle, it just works really well. I bounce your card back, then you have an extra card in your hand, and I get to draw an extra card. And the third reason is you can bounce your own characters back, again with the Hades, the Prince Phillips, the Max Goofs to bring back a song. There's a lot of things that you would want to bounce back. I just think this is such a versatile card. And yeah, it's uninkable, but you can Tipo it if you don't need it. So yeah, I would say 3, maybe even 4 of these, and this deck is great. Then 4 copies of the 4-cost inkable, you're welcome. What's cool about this deck is everything just synergizes so well together, and all the pieces have multiple functions. So take your welcome, for example. It's removal. I can banish one of your characters, or by shuffling them into your deck. And now you draw 2 cards, and if I have my Clarabelle out, then that's good for me. On the other hand, if I'm short on cards and I don't have a Clarabelle, I can use this for card draw on myself. It also can be used on items, on locations, just so many uses for this card. This is a great card. And then 2 copies of the 8-cost inkable Stopped Chaos in its tracks. You really see this now being played more than Under the Sea. So this is Sing Together 8, I've returned up to 2 chosen characters with 3 attack or less. There's a lot this deals with, just bounces them back to their hand, so it pairs a little bit better with Clarabelle than Under the Sea did. It's inkable, which is probably the main reason the switch was made. So I'm kind of on the fence if I think that was the right call or not to switch that out. Now, you'll notice there's been some cards that have been taken out from the last set into this one. I just want to talk about them for a minute. One being the 6-cost John Silver that gives Reckless. I really like that card. I'm a little biased. It was my favorite Disney movie, one of my favorite characters in the movie. The art is great on it. I love the ability. But it looks like we ran out of space. We put the max goofs in over that. I mean, we will see if that's a good choice or not. I just think that that 6 cost John Silver just really shut down opponents when it came down. You give something reckless like a Nala and just has to charge into something and banish yourself. That was great. So I'm curious to see if that was the right call or not. Again, Under the Sea, another song. That was pretty much what this deck was running for its board wipe, especially when you comboed it with Heads Held High, the Rescuer song that lowered everything's attack. That was a pretty good board wipe. So it looks like we swapped that combo out for Prince Phillip and Malicious, Mean, and Scary. I do think that's the good call. I think that is a better combo. And what's great about that combo is when Prince Phillip comes down, it's a board wipe, and then you have a 6/6 quest for 3 character on the field, which is nuts. But there are times when I definitely miss Under the Sea in this deck. I think probably the worst has been the 3 cost Clarabelle, the Wallflower one that draws you a card if your opponent has more cards. I think having those extra Clarabelle shift targets is crucial, and I do think it looks like we replaced her with the Max Goof, the Rebellious Teen. But I can see taking those out, maybe a couple Prince Phillips. If you did take out the shift target of Prince Phillip, I would put the Clarabelle in. I think having that card not in this deck is a mistake and will probably find its way back. Now, last set as well, there was some debate. Do I play the Baymax shift line, or do I play the Scrooge McDuck, the 4 cost with the 5/5 stat line quest for 2? And this deck just says I'm not going to play either of those and just focus more on ramp. It looks like the Cinderella took that slot. That probably makes you a little bit worse into aggro, but probably makes you a lot better into longer games against more control decks or mid-range decks. So we'll see if this deck can hang with aggro. Without that Baymax or Scrooge, there's really nothing other than these Prince Phillips that can deal with your aggro threats. Maybe if you get the Max Goof down, you can start singing, but maybe the game plan is just ramp to the Prince Philip shift and clear the board from there. But I think this deck I think is a little bit worse into the aggro matchup than the Baymax shift line was. Your primary mulligan strategy for this deck, if you can get a Clarabelle out on turn 1, great. Not a huge deal because, like I said, it's probably going to be removed if you do. Definitely ramp on 2. So when you mulligan, the main thing you want to look for is that ramp on 2. And again, your first choice would be Sail, then probably Tipo, 1 jump if you need to. And then that'll put you at 4 ink on turn 3, and that's when you want to play that Cinderella. So the ideal curve on this deck would be Clarabelle on 1, Sail on 2, Cinderella on 3, and then you can shift your big Clarabelle next turn. So that's probably one of the best curves in the game right now. And so if you can get that in your opening hand, I think, unless you're playing some hyper aggro deck that you can't respond to fast enough, I think you got that game in the bag. But I'd love to hear what you guys think about this deck. I know you pointed out I wasn't respecting the Prince Phillip shift line enough. I think you guys were right. But what would you add? What would you take out? Do you think these additions are good? Do you think the Max Goof shift line is going to stay in? Do you think you need the shift target for Prince Phillip? And as always, thank you for watching Night in Training. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe, share with a fellow Lumineer, and keep on learning Lorcana one misplay at a time.